So hello everybody, I believe I am live. Welcome to this Facebook Live on the topic of ME, chronic fatigue syndrome and the sensitive person. I want to talk about this because this is a topic that has come up a lot recently. High sensitivity can be defined as acute physical, mental and emotional responses to external stimuli, for instance social situations or environmental, for example noise, or internal stimuli, so what's going on inside your head. And being sensitive, it seems to me that it is a common trait with people with ME, chronic fatigue syndrome. Maybe not for everyone, but it does seem to show up quite a lot. So let's look at the difference between someone who is sensitive compared to someone who is, let's not call them insensitive, maybe someone who's robust. So let's look at how a robust person operates. What I would suggest is that a robust person has a strong sense of themselves and their focus is on themselves in an interaction. So there's good differentiation. What I mean by that is that if they walk into a room and they notice that someone's grumpy or moody, they don't take much notice. If they're in a good mood, they're still in a good mood. And when they're interacting with someone, they're thinking to themselves, what do I think about what that person's saying? So it's as if they're maintaining psychological distance between themselves and the other person. It's almost as if there's a sort of barrier. And so, for example, if someone throws something at them, some comment that they don't agree with, they actually react in the moment. I remember someone saying to me, it would be easier if you pick me up. Now, a person who's robust will just respond with their thoughts and their feelings. They might say, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense, or I'm feeling annoyed by what you just said. So they'll push back. Whereas if we look at the sensitive person, how they differ to the robust person, some of the traits of the sensitive person is they do pick up on the moods of others and are sensitive to the moods of others. So for example, if this person here is in a grumpy mood, then the sensitive person picks up on that and they might adjust their behaviour. They might be a bit more cautious in the way they interact. So they're quite easily influenced by the state of others. And their focus, therefore, is on the other person rather than on themselves. One of the things that the sensitive person is thinking is, what does that person think of me? So they don't have that same protective filter as the robust person has, which actually means if someone throws some comment at them like, it'll be easier if you pick me up. I remember when someone said that to me, and my response, it's almost like I was very open to that person and their comment, and so I had a physical body reaction. I felt tension in my body. The consequence of being sensitive is that they worry what other people think. If someone asks a question, they're more likely to respond quickly. And clients have said this to me, is that they feel as if they have to respond or mustn't keep the other person waiting. And I notice if I'm working with someone, not everyone, but some people, I'll ask them a question and there's no pause between me asking the question, so that's me talking, and them responding. They will respond straight away. Whereas, for example, the person who's more robust, there'll be a gap between someone asking them a question and them responding. So they give themselves a bit of breathing space. I often used to notice that I'd feel exhausted after conversations with people, and sometimes that was because I was just excited to be interacting with people because, I wasn't having interactions. But it's just something to be aware of, what state we're in when we are interacting with someone. Are we relaxed? Are we worrying about what other people think? Are we in a state of tension because we're worrying what that other person is saying? As I mentioned, if someone says something that's a bit out of order, then they have an internal response. They create tension in their body. And if we create tension, that blocks our energy. We feel physically drained. And they don't process what is happening. They feel some discomfort, but they're not really getting their head around why they're feeling discomfort. And it takes them maybe some time to process what's going on. So it's usually after the event that they gain insights into why they might have felt uncomfortable. And they spend a lot of time thinking about that, trying to make sense of the interaction. And so they also don't speak up in the moment. And part of the reason for that is because they're not getting their head around it. But also another reason is they are worrying what other people think. So what are the solutions? How can a sensitive person protect themselves? I think it's quite interesting if you Google the sensitive person. There's lots of conversation about what are the traits of the sensitive person. And there is some sort of exploration of how a sensitive person can take care of themselves or deal with some of those interactions. But I think there's scope for more exploration of this. So let's look at some strategies for the sensitive person. First solution is to recognize that no one's opinion is as important as your own. So that is something you need to cultivate. I remember getting into a heated conversation with family members many years ago, and I just kept saying, oh, is that how you see things? Okay, I see things differently. So I kept making that point. I was making a point of differentiating what they thought with what I thought, making it clear to them that I wasn't just going to roll over and just accept their point of view. The second thing in relation to when you're talking to someone is to slow things down, is to pause, breathe, reflect. So remember, a robust person, if you ask them a question, they will pause and they'll contemplate that question. It's as if they are saying to themselves, what do I think about this situation? Let me consider that. And at some level, it's as if they're saying, I will answer that question in my own sweet time. So slow things down, pause, reflect, slow down your speech, take breaths between sentences, ground yourself, be aware of your body, be aware of your feet on the ground. So the third solution, this is in relation to walking into a room, being aware of the state of another person. Practice thinking to yourself, okay, that's their state. But you know what? If I'm feeling good about myself, I can stay feeling good about myself. So they might be grumpy or moody or whatever, but I don't have to let that affect me. Again, it's as if I have this protective barrier. So even if they are sort of throwing their grumpiness around, I don't have to pick it up. I don't have to let it affect me. I choose to feel good about myself. And in relation to if someone is throwing something at you and you do notice a reaction, you might notice some tension in your body, then there's a process you can go through. The first thing to do is breathe, to ground yourself. Just connect to your body. Just allow a bit of space. Going back to the previous point about just pausing. And I remember working with a client who actually was very high up in martial arts. They actually they were on their national team of, I think it was Taekwondo. And we talked about a situation where a family member was throwing stuff at her, and it's as if she just took it full on and it, poleaxed her. And so I asked her the question, what would you do if someone threw a punch at you in martial arts? Would you just take the full force of the blow? And she said, no, you'd either step aside or you'd deflect the blow and divert it back to them. And so she thought about this in relation to this family member. And actually what she realised is she needed to psychologically deflect and say, well, actually, this isn't true. This is not information about me. I don't actually agree with this statement. And she would push back. She would say, actually, you're out of order, and either you need to change your behaviour or I'm going to move out because I don't want to be living in this kind of environment. And this family member actually did start to change their behaviour. And if you do notice reaction, it's about giving yourself the space to actually engage in some inquiry, to think, I'm noticing, and you might actually say this out loud, I'm noticing a reaction to what you've just said. And I'm wondering what that reaction is about. Let's ponder that. Well, I suppose what I'm noticing is that I feel uncomfortable about what you've just said. Why am I feeling uncomfortable? Well, you've just said to me it'd be easier if I pick you up. But actually that's not true. And actually I feel uncomfortable because maybe if you'd asked me, would you be willing to pick me up? Then I might say yes, I might say no. But, if you ask me, then I just feel like you're respecting me more. So actually, you know what? I'm going to say no to that. And in future, maybe you can consider that if you ask me rather than try and tell me something, I'm more likely to respond in a favourable way. So I hope that's given you a bit of food for thought about some strategies that you can use to protect yourself. Because I think, I've definitely learned to become less sensitive to what other people think, and I'm more likely, I don't always do it, but I'm more likely to respond in the moment. And part of the reason why I recognise that I didn't feel comfortable about speaking up is because, number one, I was worried what other people think, but I was also judging my feelings. But actually, our feelings, I believe, are often pretty accurate and are a good piece of information that we need to pay attention to. So, hope that's given you some food for thought about dealing with sensitivity. So, few questions. To what degree do you relate to that, being sensitive, whether it's picking up on the mood of others and being affected by the mood of others? Thinking a lot about what people think about you rather than focusing on what you think about yourself. And thirdly, that the way you react to others, if someone does throw something emotionally at you or say something that you feel uncomfortable about. So I'll give you a moment to just reply in the chat box. I know there's delayed time between me speaking and people replying. So I'll give you 30 seconds or so to just reply to that question or to those questions. I struggle with this on all of those 3 points. Okay. And you also said earlier that you agree. I wondered which bit you agreed with. So thanks for responding. Any other comments on that? I really dislike the feeling of being disapproved of. Okay, and that's something I can really relate to in the past. I was telling a client recently, I remember watching, I think Jonathan Ross was on, I think it was called The Tube on a Friday evening in the UK. And I can't remember the guy's name who was interviewing him. It'll come to me. But he asked Jonathan Ross. Jonathan Ross made some statement about some of the crazy stuff he's done in his life. And the guy, is his name Mark? Anyway, he said to him, well, what would your mother think of that? And Jonathan Ross just looked at him and he said, I'm well past the age of worrying what my mother thinks. And I can remember a time that I would be, worried about, I suppose I wanted the approval of my dad in particular. And I remember getting to the point I thought, well, actually, maybe I'm not going to get my dad's approval, and maybe I need to just let go of that desire to get his approval, and just recognize that if someone is being dismissive or disrespectful or not giving you approval, that actually says more about them than it does of you. Okay, so I generate overwhelm when a family member talks or directs me to do things that he wants done or thinks should be done. I realise my punchback is tensing in my body. It is reflexive. Yeah, I mean, these things can be habitual. And as I mentioned, I think the art is to actually just really start noticing those responses and then making choices about how we want to respond, whether we actually want to speak up, as I just described. So I think when I jump in and I don't breathe beforehand and rant off straight away. Yeah. So that's why I think it's really important to practice when people speak, pausing for a moment. I remember someone I worked with who was almost like a greyhound. As soon as I asked a question, they would answer it straight away. And they agreed that it was really probably useful to take a pause, to reflect on the question. And I have often experienced that if I do pause and think about something, the quality of the answer is better. So that was me with my mum. I wanted her approval for a long time. Eventually, I didn't need her approval anymore, so I stopped contact. I've tried saying to this person to stop asking me to do so much, but it keeps taking over me. It is difficult. Okay, so without maybe knowing too more about the situation, it's hard to give specifics, but I'm wondering I'm wondering to the degree to which you use the N word. Okay, a straight no, without apology, without explanation. Because no is a powerful word. So that's just something you might want to respond to that. But anyway, thanks for responding. We could finish with a very brief relaxation exercise for a few minutes if people are up for that. Let me know in the chat. Obviously, if you are operating heavy machinery or driving a car right now, then don't do what the exercise says, because I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. But if you're up for a short relaxation exercise, let me know. Yes. Okay. So one yes is good enough. I'm sure other people will be up for it as well. So what I'd like to do is to close your eyes, make yourself comfortable. Another yes. And just ensure that your hands and your feet and your legs and your arms are in a comfortable position. And knowing that you can adjust your posture whenever you need, I'd like you just to take a slow, gentle breath in through your nose, breathing into your belly, and then breathing slowly out through your mouth. And again, taking a breath in and breathing out slowly, just allowing your mind and body to relax. And now again, just breathing in and breathing out slowly. And we'll do a short relaxation exercise for 3 minutes, and you can do any exercise that you choose, or you can do the finger exercise that I've taught before. And for anyone who isn't familiar with it, I'll briefly describe it now. So what you do is you focus on one of your hands, and you focus on the little finger on that hand. And as you breathe in, you say a word to yourself. Could be any word at all. Peace, calm, love, trust, or another word. And as you breathe out, you say a different word. It could be one of those words, or it could be a different word. So perhaps as you breathe in, you might say peace. And as you breathe out, you might say calm. And then you go to your next finger and you do the same thing. And then the next finger, and then the thumb. When you get to your thumb, you just go back to your little finger. If you lose your place, you just choose a finger and you carry on from that place. If you catch yourself thinking about something, you just let go of that thought as if it's floating on a cloud. And you go back to the exercise. So let's do that exercise now just for a few minutes, starting from now. And I'll set the timer for 3 minutes. Okay, 1 minute left. Okay, so how did you find doing that? It'd be interesting to know what number you were for relaxed, in terms of 10 being very relaxed before you did that 3-minute exercise, and what number you are now. So I'll give you a moment just to put your 2 numbers before and after in the chat box. Was 5, now 2. So 10 is very relaxed. So I'm wondering if it's the other way around. 4 to 6, struggle with this a bit, open my eyes halfway through. That's okay, it's just something to practice. The more we practice, the better we get at it. Alright, so... Alright, well thanks for coming along to this Facebook Live. Feel free to leave any comments if you're watching this after the event, and I will have a look at them and reply. But for now, thanks for coming, and see you at another Facebook Live very soon. Bye for now.